President Trump is facing new scrutiny today over a report that he told his personal attorney to lie to Congress about his business dealings with Russia. That is, according to a Buzzfeed News report citing sources in the Southern District of New York. At issue, the president's involvement in negotiations for Trump Tower Moscow during the 2016 campaign.
It also alleges that Cohen regularly updated the president about the deal's progress and was told to set up a meeting between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, which Trump signed off on. Now, CBS News has not verified the report. House Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff calls the cover-up allegation among the most serious to date. He says, "We will do what's necessary to find out if it's true."
So, Anthony, I think everybody wants to know about that story. And I'm going to get to that story, but I think there's no way to, and this is the story about Donald Trump directing Michael Cohen to lie to Congress. But before we get to that, I'd like you to kind of set the stage, because there was some remarkable reporting that you did about the substance that Cohen would go on to lie to Congress about. So talk to us about the Trump-Moscow Tower story and what essentially you found out that Michael Cohen lied about.
Well, I mean, during the campaign, and again in the early months of his presidency, they maintained pretty strictly that this deal to build this gleaming tower with his name on it on the riverbanks in Moscow was not true. There really was just a glimmer in their eye. It was a flicker of a thing. They maintained that party line pretty significantly, right down the middle, all the way through 2017, I believe. And so we learned by obtaining several hundred documents from inside the Trump organization, inside some of the players, the developers in this deal, that they in fact were very, very interested in building this. And in fact, in the Mueller report more recently, the president thought of his campaign as an infomercial.
This morning, more questions about President Trump's involvement in a deal to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. Mr. Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, admitting for the first time that the talks continued until the 2016 presidential election, much later than previously known.
Could be up to as far as October, November. Our answers cover until the election. So anytime during that period, they could have talked about it.
Compare that to what then-candidate Trump said in the summer of 2016.
I have nothing to do with Russia. I don't have any jobs in Russia. I'm all over the world, but we're not involved in Russia.
Giuliani also denying that President Trump told his previous lawyer, Micheal Cohen, to lie to Congress about the Moscow project.
Are you 100% confident that the president never once asked Micheal Cohen to do anything but tell the truth to Congress?
100% certain.
To build the tower. They had hatched this plan, Micheal Cohen and his compatriot, Felix Sater, to actually give a $50 million penthouse in the tower to Vladimir Putin to grease the skids to get the deal done. That, to me, is a deal. It looks like a deal. It quacks like one and walks like one. It is. And we were able to, using this set of documents, publish a series of stories that showed how detailed the negotiations were, what in fact they were talking about, the fact that Micheal Cohen didn't just hatch this $50 million penthouse deal, he in fact talked to Russian officials about it. So we were able to show the lengths that they had gone to sort of negotiate this and build it, or at least get close to building it.
And you even had architectural drawings,
sure,
which I was quite impressed with. And also, you essentially, using text messages and emails, you showed that the negotiations did not end in January, right before the first primary, but in fact continued on and through June. And that, I believe, was the substance of and the essence of the lie to Congress that Michael Cohen told. And so then you came out with a story that said that President Trump directed Michael Cohen to lie. And after it published, the special counsel, which virtually never comments, I think he's known as no comment Carr, issued a one-sentence statement that said,
BuzzFeed's description of specific statements to the special counsel's office and characterization of documents and testimony obtained by this office regarding Michael Cohen's congressional testimony are not accurate.
which was very hard to parse, but nevertheless sent Twitter all a Twitter. And then the saga only got more interesting after Cohen publicly testified to Congress, saying that
he doesn't give you questions, he doesn't give you orders. He speaks in a code, and I understand the code because I've been around him for a decade.
And then the Mueller report coming out and saying that it did not have evidence to establish that Trump directed Cohen to lie. So what happened, and what's your take on it now?
What happened? I caused a lot of trouble. The principal got really mad at me.
Good evening. We had intended to speak at the top of this program with one of two BuzzFeed reporters behind a report that, if true, meant that federal investigators had evidence that the President of the United States committed a serious crime and potentially an impeachable offense. CNN had not independently confirmed the story, nor had any other news organization. And just a few moments ago, we learned that BuzzFeed was going to pull their reporter from the program because Robert Mueller's office was about to weigh in.
Jennifer, one question I have right off the bat is, why are they responding? Mueller responds to nada, hasn't responded to anything in a year.
We have really good sources, and they showed us documents, and I'm safe to say this now, even though the government's former main leak hunter is in the room. I'm sure you're not going to, we're off the record, right, man? They shared with us documents, contemporaneous notes, taken during interviews with Micheal Cohen, in which he told the team of investigators that he felt he was directed to lie. He was instructed to lie. Now, the interpretation of that word directed is at issue, as is the word explicit, because in my story, I used the word explicit. And in fact, it wasn't explicit the way I'm telling you, hey, go lie for me, Sue, because that's not how the president talks, right? He uses code words, much like a gangster, to be honest with you. And in this case, Micheal Cohen interpreted those words to be a direction. Go do this. Except that he didn't say, hey, Mike, go lie for me. So therein rests the entire sort of story, right? And it's my job as a journalist to get that right, and I didn't. Right? I didn't get the words perfectly. And I took a beating for it. Absolutely was crushed. It was an interesting moment for me because I got to take a look at how the sausage is made from the mainstream media, right? Like, I'm started on a loading dock, man, and all of a sudden, like, they're telling me that I'm a black eye on American journalism. And
Ethan, could this be, or let me rephrase the question and make it a statement, this is an example of people believing what they wanted to believe?
Well, I think that there was some of that. However, I want to say something right up front. It's an interesting and odd day when I agree as much with Dan Bongino as maybe even more so than Guy Benson right now, because Dan is right. We have to have some trust and faith in journalists, and there's a problem right now where journalists want to be opinion hosts, and they blur the line.
It's a dark day, and I've sullied my profession and my reputation, and so all that was fun. But I actually learned that it's I'm not in a fetid cell in Myanmar. I'm not Jamal Khashoggi, right? What happened to me is a mere pittance because Brian Stelter and Twitter yelled at me because I said a truth that my sources believed is nothing. It's this. It matters nothing. It was a whole lot of fun to go through. Let me tell you,
But you found some perspective.
Of course, you have to. I was going to go change my name so that my kids weren't embarrassed by me. Saturday Night, I'm the punchline of a Saturday Night Live joke.
Look, BuzzFeed, I think it's great. We all think it's great that you want to help, but this isn't really what we need from you. Y'all are BuzzFeed. You do memes and lists. Everybody's got that aunt who has roaches, and every Thanksgiving, she's like, hey, y'all, what should I bring? And we're like, ice? You bring the ice because we don't want to be picking raisins out of the turkey. That's That's you, BuzzFeed. You bring the ice. You know, as Dr. King once said, don't go chasing waterfalls. Please stick to the rivers and the lakes that you are used to. And there's no shame in that. We all play a role. Look, sometimes kids come up to me and they'll say, Michael Che, I get all my news from you. And I say, don't do that. I bring the ice.
Right? Like that's the place that I existed for a moment, right? And we just reported through it, right? Because the president and Rudy Giuliani says the day after Mueller spanks us, there's no deal. And so we said, excuse my language, it, here are the receipts. And so rather than tweeting through it or talking through it, we just kept reporting. We had all this material and we said, you know what? We're gonna keep going. We're not gonna stop. Doesn't mean that we don't have to sort of atone and learn what we did, right? And make sure that we sort of understand how that happened. But like we just reported through it, which is I think my job. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Today, as you heard, Michael Cohen pled guilty to 8 felony charges. 5 of those dealt with tax evasion for the years 2012 through 2016, in which he failed to report approximately $4.1 million in reported income. Approximately 2.5 of that money was from interest payments from a personal loan that he failed to report. Approximately $1.3 million of that money was from the operation of his taxi medallion business. Approximately $100,000 of that money was from brokerage commissions, and over $200,000 was from consulting fees. That's over $4.3 million over a 5-year period, which translates into a loss to the United States Treasury of approximately $1.3 million. In addition, in count 6, Mr. Cohen pled guilty to making false statements to a financial institution in connection with an application for a home equity line of credit. In that application, he failed to disclose more than $14 million in debt that he had, and as a result of that concealment, he obtained that $500,000 line of credit, which he would not have been entitled to had he been candid and honest. In addition, Mr. Cohen pled guilty to 2 campaign finance charges, one for causing an unlawful corporate contribution, and a second one for personally making an excessive personal contribution, both for the purpose of influencing the 2016 election. In addition, what he did was he worked to pay money to silence 2 women who had information that he believed would be detrimental to the 2016 campaign and to the candidate and the campaign. In addition, Mr. Cohen sought reimbursement for that money by submitting invoices to the candidate's companies, which were untrue and false. They indicated that the reimbursement was for services rendered for the year 2017, when in fact those invoices were a sham. He provided no legal services for the year 2017, and it was simply a means to obtain reimbursement for the unlawful campaign contribution.